If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel.
If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. I'm your host, the Innkeeper, and this is our live call and talk show all about the Wheel of Time. Thank you for coming back this afternoon, this casual Sunday afternoon, to talk all about the best off-screen Wheel of Time scenes that we believe should end up in the TV show. But before we do that, I want to remind you of about a couple things coming up here at the Dusty Wheel. First of all, we'll be back this Watt Wednesday talking all about Alvaro Morte. He's going to be playing Logain in the upcoming TV show. We can't wait to break down his career, talk about what we think he will do well, and basically, do we believe he can become this character we've come to know as readers? And then the following Sunday, next week, we're going to be doing a deep dive of the Age of Legends with the wonderful Amber and Tracy from the Road to Tarvalon podcast. Can't wait to have them on. Be back here next Sunday with us. And I want to share a couple pieces of news before we jump in and before I introduce my guests. So let's do that now. I don't know if you saw this, but last, I think it was Wednesday, the Wheel of Time and Amazon Prime decided to give us a little bit of news. And part of that included an animated title sequence for the show. Now, one of the users out there, Angus, he decided to give us a little gold coloring. It came out in silver. Some of the fans were like, where's the gold from the original logo? So here's his version of that. I want to show you that one now if you didn't see this. And fans were kind of mixed, although a lot of them appreciated seeing kind of this gold on this. So yeah, I honestly, I like it both of these, but I want to say it was kind of more, everyone enjoyed this, but some of you decided the silver kind of lettering was better. So anyways, thank you very much, Angus, for sharing that. And then I don't know if you saw this, but I got into some loony theories this past weekend. First of all, I had fun finding the name Amazon in the lettering, which is a lot of fun. So that was a lot of fun. But this is the one I liked the most. Talking about the NN that showed up in this animated title sequence. And I want to break this down. Once I introduce my guests, we'll talk about what these theories are. But yes, NN equaling, September 9th, 14th, 19th, or 99 days from when they dropped it, which would be October 7th, or maybe it's November 9th or 14th or 19th. Who knows? Do we even believe this? I just love this as a loony theory as it broke down this weekend. That was a lot of fun. Okay. So to talk about this latest news and to talk about the off-screen or the best off-screen scenes, I invited two new first-time guests here at the Dusty Wheel. So let me welcome them to the show. Welcome, Stubble and Marin, to the Dusty Wheel. Cheers to you both. Thank you for being here.
It's so exciting to be here.
Marin Alvear on Twitter of Time. Marin, so you are a Wheelie Award winner now. How does that feel? Did that change your life when that happened?
I can't even tell you. The paparazzi follow me everywhere now.
Everywhere?
I mean, I had to move from Chicago.
Nice.
It has been, that whole experience was so lovely. And I was absolutely gobsmacked that I was nominated to begin with, because all of the Eamonsfielders on Twitter of Time are absolutely amazing. And I really do feel like I share this with them, because it's all of us together that make it awesome. But I'm happy to, have the little shiny thing in my home. So it's lovely and fun.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm bummed that I forgot to grab the picture of the award that Will Reeds is putting out there for everyone that won an award. Thank you very much. The Dusty Wheel won, I think, Best News Source, news and rumors, right? That appeal. So thank you very much. It was a Twitter of Time Awards. If you haven't seen it, I'll make sure that there's a link in the description to this. You got to go check it out. The Wheel Reeds put on this wonderful night for fans. It was a blast. So Marin, thank you for joining us. It was awesome to have you. And Stubble, thank you for all the calling that you do normally. And I'm glad we're having this show at a time that you're awake and we're more awake than normal. So do you want to tell everyone how this show came to be? I mean, I invited you specific to this very reason. So why are we talking about the best off-screen scenes?
Well, it was during, you broke down the books. I think it was during Dragon Reborn. What could you cut and so on. And I called in and said that you had to add some things as well from things that's not in the books. And that led to this show.
That's right. Yeah. I as soon as when you had called in, I was like, that is a great point. We need to do a show all about the stuff that needs to stay or be put into the TV series. Because we always talk about like, don't cut this thing. Rafe and his team better keep this in, don't take this person out or this event or this plot. But there's a lot of stuff that Robert Jordan didn't give us because of his, third person limited viewpoint that he takes us through the whole books. It's like when we're in Rand's head, we can't see what's going on in the village that he left, right? So, but the TV show can do stuff like that and can kind of jump us around in ways that it was more difficult, I guess, for Jordan to do. So that's why we're here, everybody. Yes, the topic is best off-screen scenes from the books. We're kind of focused early on in The Eye of the World, The Great Hunt, some of these earlier books, but we will kind of break out and talk about other scenes. If you're here with us, please do like this video so other fans that are celebrating, maybe if they're in their U.S., celebrating some independence today by joining us here on the show. I appreciate that. But yeah, make sure you please like the video just so other fans can find us here while we're live. Now, that being said, why don't we jump into, I think, what has got to be one of the all-time favorites from fans when it comes to this question of off-screen scenes. Our first one's going to be Tam Finding Rand. And I guess before we go any further, I should remind everybody about this. This is a spoiler-full show. If we're talking about the books, I don't know how to help you. We're talking the best off-screen scenes. It's going to touch on all the books. We're not going to try to break out any crazy secrets from later on, but we may touch on things. Just assume stuff is going to be spoiled. Like this. If you didn't realize that Tam found Rand, then we just spoiled something for you. So let me go to this. Marin, let me jump to you first. This idea of seeing that actually take place, right? We get the story of it. Do you think that that's an important screen or a scene that we see in the TV show? And is it one of your favorites?
Well, we discussed this a little off screen about how in the books, every moment of joy is tempered with pain, right? I mean, I'm like just about. And here's a chance for a purely joyful moment, where, the relief and still being scared, but, but I really think it could really add something to the show. That being said, I think there are other scenes that would add even more. So I could go either way on this one.
Yeah, seeing obviously seeing that war, seeing the attack, there's a lot of stuff they could show here. And I think it could add some impact to this. The question of him actually showing the scene of Tam finding him. There is something really interesting in the books where it's more kind of a memory that's being told to you, and you're kind of envisioning it in your head, because
right.
you're kind of with Rand a little bit there in that way of like, he can just kind of imagine what it must have been like. Stubble, do you think this is one of the best off-screen scenes of the Wheel of Time that we're just told about?
I think it's a necessary scene, and I think it could be 2 scenes, because I think it could be a cold opening to the whole show, but you don't see any faces. You have the ale war backdrop, and then you see someone struggling up the mountain in the snow and so on, finding, and that could be a cold opening. And then they go back to it later on and show Tam's face and so on.
Oh, interesting. Not connect them. I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's a necessary thing to have at some point in the show.
Yeah, and I just realized I was thinking of a completely different scene. So you mean when he's a baby?
Yes. Sorry.
That needs to be in there.
Sorry. Like, yes, that is the scene. Yeah.
No, I think yes. It's. I mean, it's kind of a Kickstarter, really. Yeah. So yes, I think that would be something that would be wonderful if they were able to include it.
Yeah, there's something just obviously very paternal here. There's something, I like, Stubble, the idea that you had of like, not necessarily you don't necessarily see faces. Maybe it's just a sequence of war and this happening, but you don't necessarily connect the two things until later. I'm kind of curious for those of you that are watching on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you're at, or here with us live in chat on YouTube. Give me a thumbs up if you think that this is either one of the best off-screen scenes that we just never get, and whether or not you believe that this is something that we should see in the TV show. Yeah, I love this. I love this for the TV show, and I love not necessarily showing it all at once. Stubble, yeah, great idea. So yeah, I wanted to start off there. It's such a, like you said, Maren, like, sorry, I probably should have explained exactly what scene that was, but yes, why that is such a key point. In fact, a lot of people talk about the prologue to The Eye of the World being like, I hope they show it on the TV show. But if I had to pick between the prologue and this, I would pick this one. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's more important, at least early on. I mean, the prologue obviously has importance. So I'm starting to see some thumbs up coming down. And, I'm seeing a thumb down here or there, but mostly thumbs up so far. So yeah, people are kind of beginning or agreeing with this first concept. Okay. Any other thoughts on this particular scene before we move on to the next one?
I just wanted to add that I tend to agree with you that the prologue itself, although it's incredibly relevant, it's really relevant later, as, him being found on Dragon Mount is relevant immediately. So, yeah,
exactly.
I agree.
It has earlier relevance.
Push the prologue off till later.
If we should touch on the prologue, I think it's possible we see it in a flashback scene from Ishamal's point of view later on in the show.
Yeah, I liked Ishamael being a driver of that flashback. That is much more interesting to me. Hopefully they do dig into him, and maybe that we'll get to that topic of the Forsaken here later on the show, but that's a good thing to bring back up when we get there. Okay, number 2. We have Beltane and Winternight. We don't get a lot of this, right, in the books. It's basically like, hey, this cool stuff's about to happen, and then like, we got to go back home. And then the idea of this attack, we don't actually see a lot of that either, or barely anything, right? We just see the attack itself happening at the farmhouse. So when it comes to this, we already do know somewhat, right? For those of you, I don't have it with me here, or I would show it with the leaked little teaser trailer of Moiraine standing on the village green in front of what we proved to be the Wine Spring Inn, with a little fading in here. Taylor did us a nice. He connected it to a screenshot or an image that Wheel of Time and Amazon Prime released before, so we know that we're going to get something there. But Beltane, is it important for us, and do you think that is one of the best off-screen scenes, the stuff happening, is that something we want to see? Is Beltane, something that, I guess technically, would you even call that off-screen because this attack happens? Anyways, I know we're told we're going to get Beltane, but yeah, I'm seeing you shake your head, Maren. Do you want to see Beltane?
I want to see all of it. I really do, because one of the things that I think could have been done maybe a smidge better in the books was tying those three together in a way that, that Winter Night kind of does, because they're starting to suspect, like, hey, why were only these houses attacked, and why were, but everything that we know about what happened in Emansfield happens in retrospect as they're kind of half explaining it through different things. And considering that it was such a powerful thing to have happen, I mean, this tiny town where nothing exciting really ever happens. I mean, they're super excited to see that Gleeman, and then these beasts from myth attack. I mean, that's got to be something to see. And then we see, Moraine and Lan, and they're pulling out all the stops with that. So I think that could be like one of the very most exciting scenes of the whole series. Right?
Yeah. The attack itself. And if we move away from Beltane and just speak to the attack, that's something I felt like as a reader, I'm like, what happened? And there is something nice about not getting it all, right? You get to kind of imagine what's going on. We know we're going to get some of that just from so we already know we are. And I think most fans are like happy about that. I think I put this up on Instagram, 90+% said yes, can't wait. So it seems like Rafe has a good pulse on what fans would like to see and what scenes would also be important. So that's one of them. The attack itself and the what's happening to the Emansfielders. Stubble, you brought up an interesting point when we were talking about this, though. Okay, Beltane, Winter Night, sure, but what about all of the little things that are happening in Emansfield, and should we see some of those? So what are some of the key ones for you that are off-screen scenes that you think we should see in the TV show when it comes to just kind of building out what Emansfield is and the culture there?
Okay, I have a long list here. So
Go for it.
Let's get started.
Yeah.
One thing that's almost confirmed, that's the braiding of Egwene's hair.
Okay.
Because there were leaked pictures where the Nynaeve and Egwene was at the river or what it was. And then in connection with that, we'll probably get the women's circle as well and see how that works. And if you talk about Beltane, I think it's an opportunity to show character, to establish the different protagonists, to show how Perrin and Nynaeve act if they have to dance, for example. To maybe have Matt release the badger.
Okay, we have to talk about that one. Yeah, so okay, hold on. Everyone that's watching in chat, do you want to see anything to do with Matt pulling pranks? Matt and pranks, is that something we want to see here? Is that a must-have? Because I feel like that is an off-screen thing that everyone talks about. So thumbs up in chat if you want to see a Matt Cawthon prank occur actually on screen, because that is, everyone talks about the Badgers. But it's all right. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Go ahead, Stubble. Keep on adding to your list.
No, also when Moraine arrives, when she meets Nynaeve, how that confrontation or meeting happens. And maybe they have the archery contest to establish how good they are at archery and so on. So it's a perfect opportunity to establish skills and personalities and so on, and how Nynaeve and how Moraine works because Nynaeve is an authority figure. Does she go up and dance or does she not? Perrin is very hesitant about crowds and very careful. So how does he relate to the others? So it's a perfect opportunity to show character.
Yeah, I agree that some of that gets just developed in the books by just telling us, right? We're kind of given the impression by Nynaeve and others and Gwaine and what, Abel and Tam are saying. That's how we learn about some of these characters. And we start building that. But it would be nice, I saw this from Sarab, who said that would be a nice show, no tell. Right, the TV show gives us a chance to kind of show some of these things. I think you're right. What's interesting, you bring up the archery contest, right? Like, again, I don't know if we can really call that an off-screen scene, but it would be nice, like you said, to kind of build out what some of the skill sets are relatively easily that way. So I like this idea of, but I want to focus on one of the ones you brought up, and Maren, I want to get your opinion about this. Moiraine meeting Nynaeve. Do we need to see that? Is that something you feel like we missed as readers? Is that an off-screen scene here? Or is that like something later between them would be more interesting when it comes to some confrontation between those two?
You know, they're both such complex characters that I do have thoughts, believe it or not. I think that one of the nuances is that, you know, Nynaeve is angry and suspicious all the time early on. And then this fancy lady comes to town and undoubtedly makes Nynaeve feel somewhat uncomfortable before she even develops any reason to actively dislike her. And so I think it would be kind of interesting to see some hints of that early on. I don't know if it needs a full-fledged scene, but I think, you know, as we're working in all these other details of Emond's Field early on, that would be kind of an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah, they're pointing out that I'm seeing lots of yeses for that, but then Mike Veach said, I don't think that's a powerful moment. Their later dynamic has not yet been established. So that's a good question. You know, they have a lot of decisions to make here of what they show us, right? It sounds like that first episode will clearly get this, you know. It's hard to think that they'll still be in Emond's Field in the second episode. So we know I think will have already moved on to Terran Ferry and to other events. So what do they show us? That's an interesting one. I can kind of go both ways on that one. I'm not totally sure about. Stubble, do you have do you believe that we need to see some kind of, I don't know, confrontation? It doesn't have to be a confrontation necessarily, but do we have to see Moiraine and Nynaeve meet, if you will?
It can help to establish that Nynaeve is pissed off at Moiraine from the start.
Okay.
So she just finds an excuse for building on that later on.
Yeah, I mean, Samantha's pointing out she calls her child, which is a huge foreshadowing, to her. So that's a good point. This one I can get pulled back and forth. I don't really have a lot of invested in necessarily in that moment. I think though it could be really cool. Could be the first braid tug, is what Oliver's ears just said. Yeah, that would be good. Okay, I mean that could be good. Okay, I am leaning that way.
I'd forgotten about the child moment, and it's like, oh yeah, that would send her through the roof, I am sure.
Yeah, the child moment.
Referred to.
Braid tug, yeah. Okay, so one I think is good. Yeah, go for it, Stubble.
Yeah, it's connected to the whole to Rivers Emond's Field thing, but I don't know if they're going to have Tam and Rand at the farm, that they go back to the farm or not. But if they go back to the farm, I would like to see Tam fight Trollocs.
Gotcha. Yeah, you'd like to actually see it happen. Yeah, right. So that's a really good one to bring up. Thumbs up if you want to see Tam battle Trollocs here. I have a hard time believing we're going to get some thumbs down. The great one to bring up. There's some key moments. You brought up some interesting ones, which is kind of, immediately establishing kind of Matt's prankish nature, potentially, immediately establishing this relationship between Nynaeve and Moiraine, and getting a feel for Tam having some kind of history outside of this small village, if you will. I love that. We're starting to see some thumbs up on that one. I'd be surprised. Yeah, great one to bring up before we move on from this topic. So, this is one I think we're gonna see this when the first episode drops, which we now know is going to happen right in 2021. So that's crazy. We're going to see whatever moments they decided to give us now that we're not necessarily in the books. I hope, it sounds like we're already getting a couple from at least what we've seen from some of the footage that's been like either leaked or shown to us in teasers, right? At the very least, we know Moiraine on the village screen. It's going to be awesome. So, okay. I think that's probably good. I don't want to get too stuck here. We could probably stay on this one topic forever for the whole show. Let's move on to topic number 3. This is a big one because we already know that some of these things are happening. So Logain, War, Capture of the Hall, and Gentling. Let me go back. I'll start with you on this one, Stubble. When it comes to Logain, we know that we're getting more of Logain already. Like, that's obvious from what the comments that have been made where Rafe, is raising his profile, basically. And I think even from, I want to say WattSeries.com found some what do you call it? I can't think. Tryouts is not the right word. Auditions. There we go. Found like an audition tape on Vimeo that suggested, we're going to get some scenes with Logain before the war potentially, or while the war's going, while the battle's going on. I think we have Peter Franzen, I want to say, made some comment on Alvaro Morte's social media suggesting that maybe there's some fighting there. So we know we're getting some scenes that we don't have in the books. So that being said, what are the best Logain off-screen scenes, first of all, Stubble, that you believe, are some of the ones you wish you would have seen as a reader?
I think we will probably see the proclamation that he proclaimed himself as the dragon.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and we'll see some battles. I don't know how much it will be, if it's just one or several. But he's captured, and he's. I don't know how far you will stretch this, but I think we'll see a few battles, at least one, and the capture, of course, and then I don't know if we should take it to the White Tower as well, or how far do you want to stretch this?
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Maybe Maren, I'll come to you on this. The proclamation itself, do you find that kind of be a key point, that either knowing, right? They just hear about it. We hear about it early on in the books, right? Like, yeah, someone's proclaimed themselves as the dragon. We hear this idea, but actually seeing the proclamation, do you think there's going to be power in that? Should we see that in the TV show?
Oh, I think that would be phenomenal. But I also, one of the things that kind of troubled me about the Logain story was that you get snippets of him here and there and gossip and all of that, but nobody comes to Dragon Reborn by themselves. So he has followers. He has people who believe in him. And it seems like what happens with that? Are they trying to break him out? What's going on with that? And so I think as they develop his story arc, to see more of like, why do people follow him in the first place, would be something I'd like to see, because for me, that wasn't something that really gripped me in the stories. So I'm kind of excited to see what are all these different perspectives on Logain.
Yeah, you bring up a really interesting idea that I hadn't thought about, which was, they need to build this idea of why people are following, other than just like he can channel, for example, but building up the character enough to believe in him that people would follow this person. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic thing that I feel like we're definitely going to have. I mean, they must have written that in to have raised Logain's profile, for Rafe to kind of say that he's already going to do that. So I think that is the proclamation. Samantha's bringing up some good points in chat about the proclamation. Like, are they going to stick strictly to the books and how that came about? I think him channeling is an obvious one, right? Like, not only the battles, but you need to. I can't remember who brought this up in chat, but this is obvious. You have to. You want us to believe there's something. Why does everyone fear male channelers, right? You have to come to that knowledge. And so I think showing that on the screen is going to actually serve us really well. So I think I want to see that. Is his capture really necessary to see? Like, do we need, he gets captured. Is it necessary that we see his capture, Stubble?
I don't know. It depends on how they tell it. They can cut before his capture, and then we just hear he's captured. But it would be interesting to see when they shield him and his desperation and his anguish of losing his connection to Saidin.
That's a good point. I mean, the shielding aspect of it that's a really interesting, and his loss of access. I'm leaning towards it now. Maren, are you a believer in that? Like, do we need to see that shielding moment and basically see this capture happen and his reaction afterwards?
I think the reason I want to see it isn't so much for Logain's sake, but for what to expect when it happens to Rand, because it is the giant foreshadowing. It's kind of like Brian in The Life of Brian, Monty Python, right? The guy who's kind of parallel. I don't know if you're into Monty Python at all, but it's one of those things where it's you know what the stakes are then for Rand, which you might not really realize if we don't have that experience with Logain. Did that make sense outside my head?
Yeah, no, absolutely. What the stakes are, I think, is a great point. I think this is a really smart move by Rafe and his team because it does set up the whole issue, all the issues coming with Rand. Now, this one has been a sticking point. I've seen for and against in this, and I'm kind of curious what the fans say in chat and what both of you think. The actual seeing the gentling, how important is that to think in the show? It's one of the off-screen scenes. It's almost terrifying, and it's like, what is this even? Right? It's the absence of knowing what this is almost more terrifying as a reader. Of like, yes, I don't want that to happen. That sounds terrible. Because you see the after effects of it. So going to you, Maren, on this, do you believe that really would qualify his gentling as one of those best off-screen scenes? And is it really necessary for the TV show?
I hadn't thought about that until I was thinking about this show here. So
right.
I have to say, though, that as a person who doesn't necessarily love glorying in violence, and I recognize this is going to be a very violent TV show, and that's fine, a very violent program. The most difficult things are watching where people lose their dignity, lose their, their hope, their sense of purpose, more so than physical pain, if that makes sense. And so for me, I think it's probably more devastating to be watching a man get gentled than, in a later series when perhaps another character chops off someone's hand and perhaps makes an Aes Sedai heal it, and torture somebody that way. So I see both, for and against. I tend to lean more, having had this discussion now, I tend to lean kind of toward it again, because it raises the stakes for what we don't want to see happen to the characters that we really are attached to.
Yep, and Jeffrey Gerard just brought this up. In terms of timeline, can we have both Logain's gentling and Rand's reveal as a dragon happen in the same episode? And I've heard that before. People suggest, somehow pairing the end of maybe season 1 with this event. That's an interesting way to go about it. Stubble, are you for or against this idea? First of all, that the gentling is an important, best off-screen scene, if you will, and whether or not it should be on the TV show?
I think it can be, for all the reason Marion said about showing the effects on Logain and so on. It can also be a good opportunity to show the whole, to show a ritualistic aspect to the Aes Sedai. So I think even if it takes up a bit of time of the show, I think it's a lot of benefits to showing it.
Yeah, it's a really, I go back and forth. I'm seeing chat just kind of, there's a lot of back and forth on this. Leave it ambiguous, raise the stakes, show people what could happen to Rand, just show the after effects. Like you were saying, Maren, it's a tough call. I don't envy Rafe's team because I can see benefits for both ways on this one. Mm-hmm. I do see just the impact and showing it viscerally. Even if you just basically heard this happen, right? Like almost hearing it happen from the perspective of others around it could be terrifying. I want to remind everybody, if you are here enjoying this, we're talking about the best off-screen scenes from the Wheel of Time, targeting the earlier books, and we'll kind of break this out. And also we're asking ourselves the question, do these TV shows, or do these belong on the TV show? Please do like this video if you're here with us. Appreciate all the conversation I'm seeing. I'm trying to pull as many comments from chat as I can into this conversation. And if you're watching this on Twitter or Facebook, this was your sneak peek into the first 30 minutes of our 90-minute show. So please come over here on YouTube to watch the rest of this. Hopefully you enjoyed this, like I said, on Facebook and Twitter. But we'll see you over here on YouTube. Come join the conversation and finish off the discussion. We're going to get into talking about Fane and Land of Nynaeve and Tarwin's Gap and all these other things. Come join the rest of the conversation with us over here at the Dusty Wheel on YouTube. Okay, let's move on from this one. We could talk about Logain and his gentling probably for the entire show. It could be its own show, right? Let's be honest. Let's jump to this next topic here. This is a smaller topic, but I love this that was brought up, I think, on Instagram. I think it was brought up between the three of us. Tam, Abel, and Swan, or the White Tower, if you will. I don't believe they actually meet, but this event, them going and looking for their kids. It's like, where did they go? You took them away from us. I want to suggest this one. I want to go first on this one, which is, I hated that in the books. Like I always jokingly say, like, Jordan leaves us to believe these are terrible parents because you never hear anything. So at least he gave us this one moment of like, yeah, did you know Tam and Abel, they went and looked for you. They couldn't find you, went back home. But cool. I think that would be really interesting for the show. I think this is probably one of my favorite scenes that we never get to see. I would love to have seen them go to the White Tower. And I would have actually liked to have been built up more. I would like to have more for it to have happened in that meeting. Like this whole kind of like, can't see it, go home, and then just go home thing. I'm not into that. But so I like this as a scene. And then, like I said, more Tam, more White Tower, more caring, interesting things coming out of Beeman's Field instead of just kind of like they leave it and we never see it again until basically book 4. So I'm pushing. I think this is absolutely something that should be there. Marin, what's your thoughts here? Do we need more Tam and Abel and their journey and more kind of the goings on in Beeman's Field after they leave?
Their journey, not necessarily, but definitely when they show up at the White Tower, because I think this is one of the early, suggestions that look how manipulative the Aes Sedai are. I mean, these parents show up looking for their kids and like, yeah, sucks to be you, head home. And the kind of ramifications that has. I mean, there's a reason people don't trust the Aes Sedai. So,
right,
and of course, all of the things that happen in Beeman's Field to get hints of that along the way, so that when Perrin comes back, it's a place that kind of makes sense a little bit. But as far as showing up the White Tower, yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah, and I'm seeing this. It's not one of those that, it's not like this is a core thing as far as needed for the plot. I just think it's really important scene for us to connect with the families, right? I felt really disconnected as a reader. So when the destruction that happens to the Beeman's Field afterwards, I felt more disconnected from that than I maybe should have and maybe I was younger and when I first read of it, and it just didn't hit me as hard. But I want that connection to remain. I think it's an important kind of concept. What do you think, Stubble, on this? Do we need a deeper connection than we get in the books when it comes to Beeman's Field and Tam and Abel and see actually some of their attempts to find their kids, if you will?
Yeah, I don't think it has to take so much time to show it. They can show them leaving, deciding to leave and leaving sort of like the second episode, and then arriving in episode 7 or 8 or maybe next season even. And then you can show the difference between Tam and Abel in how much they have seen the world. So Tam has seen all the big cities. Abel Coffin has, I guess, stayed on his farm and no, they live in the city, right?
Supposedly, Abel's supposedly stayed on his farm. I think Abel's got some nefarious things going on, but that's just me.
But I don't.
He's a horse trader.
Exactly.
I don't think he has seen the world as Tam has done during his early years. So it's an opportunity to separate them a little bit and make them more distinguished from each other. So and also you can see how normal people are treated by the Aes Sedai. Usually you just see Aes Sedai reacting to rulers and other channelers, but now you have the opportunity to see how they treat a normal person.
Yeah, again, I know this one's admittedly a very small kind of storyline. I'm seeing comments like 222 Damien said more important things to show. There are bigger things. There's just something about this that I think, like you said, Stubble, could be done really quickly, but would be really meaningful in ways that we don't get in the books. That connection, I still think, is, again, something really, really small they could do, but really keep us connected, I think would be great. And it'd be kind of a surprise thing. So
they can do the deciding, the leaving, and the bit in Tar Valon 3 minutes, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Just really quick. Okay, so let's jump back to a larger topic of the first two books here. Let's move on to our next topic, Fane. Padan Fane. There's some key scenes here that we get off screen that fandom always talks about, and I think could be very impactful here. Let's start with the first one here. I mean, obviously, up on the screen, I'm showing everyone something that says nailing the Myrddraal to the door and more. Let's start with escaping the prison. Stubble, is the escape actually important to see with Padan Fane? It sounds like, from what gets described, such a horrific kind of scene. Do we need to see it?
I think we should see that he escapes, but maybe not all the details, because what you leave out can be more effectful than what you show. So, because he affects those prisoners around him and the guards and so on. And I don't know if you can show everything as much as you need in order to get the same visceral emotion from it.
Yeah, this is I'm seeing some people never cared about Padan Fane. Escape is not essential. Yeah, do you want to see what goes on, Maren? Do you think that it's an important piece about Fane's, what he's becoming? The becoming of Padan Fane?
I just want to say ditto to Stubble. I just want to say ditto, because it's one of those things where I think it's helpful to see smidges, but it's not as important as a lot of other things.
Okay, so I want to make a case this for the Robert Borgen just said Padan Fane can shift Watt into a horror genre, and I like it. We need to. I think that there's a case here to be made that you need to create a villain out of him, because we're probably going to meet him, and people are going to be like, "Is he really that important and scary?" And I feel like you do need to see that beginning. Now, let's jump from that scene to nailing the Myrddraal to the door. Okay, how about? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Stubble, go back to the. I think we could see him maybe kill one of the guards, or one of the prisoners in a very gruesome way, but don't show the whole thing. Because that, and then. Well,
yeah, I'm seeing people say, Myrddraal, yes, escape, no. So let's jump to this, or the details of the escape. Maybe, like you said, we see him go, but not necessarily all the details there. The Myrddraal, Maren, this is brought up all the time. I
have
by
opinions.
Fandom. Yeah, let me hear them.
I have opinions. Okay, so let's go back a few decades. And I actually started reading this book back when it first came out. And I actually intended to buy it as a gift for my brother, and then started reading it. So he got something else for his birthday that year. But when I read that part about the Myrddraal, I was genuinely shocked. I mean, it was the first time in the book where it was like I full stop, went back and reread all the events leading up to it, because it was just this moment of horror that I wasn't expecting to come across. Even though everything up to that point's been kind of creepy, they're traveling along this weird portal world and everything's a little strange. And so to that end, I have to say, I don't want to see it happening. I want to feel that shock as he comes in, and maybe after that say, oh, here's the, a little bit of a flashback on how the Myrddraal ended up nailed to something. But to the introduction of it, I don't want to see anything leading up to it. I just want it, because it was such a profound shock to me in the book, I want it to be that same shock on screen.
By the way, it's the variation of like what you just explained and what I'm seeing in chat about all the nuance as fans. Like in my head, I almost want to hear it having happened. I want to almost see what the other dark friends and what the reaction of everything around it, of what just happened. That could be really horrifying. And like you said, leaving a little bit to the imagination of like, how was he able to do this, while still kind of focusing that this is a huge change, right? What has just happened here is a significant moment for all these shadow spawn, and for this one particular fade, and for the dark friends. Not expected, right? No one's expecting this particular moment, especially from this Padan Fane character. So I think that now I want to go to some of the other ones I'm seeing here. While we're on the subject of Padan Fane, I think the Myrddraal is, everyone again Rafe's not going to make everyone happy here, that's for sure, because I'm seeing like yes and no's and and sort ofs and maybes and give me portions over here. This is not going to make everyone happy what he chooses, but I can tell there's going to be a small portion of the fandom happy with whatever they choose here.
The live chat is fantastic on this one.
Oh yeah. Everyone's great. Thank you very much again for being here on a little 4th of July Independence Day here in the U.S. It's really nice everybody, decided to show up and chat with us. It's great. Well, let's stay on Fane for a little bit longer here. Then I'm going to open the phone lines. Again, please just reminding you, like the video so other fans can come find it, come chat with us while we're live. It's just fun to be here in this moment. Stubble, Padan Fane, and Sheol and the Dark One. I mean, when Moiraine talks about him basically being made into the Hound of the Dark One, are those important scenes to see? Or is that also just knowledge you want to be told about and leave it up to your imagination?
I think it's an opportunity, perhaps, when Moiraine interrogates, questions, whatever you want to use, the Fane in Faldara, that you get flashbacks, perhaps, from just quick scenes.
Oh man, you're giving me an idea here. What if, while he's nailing the Myrddraal to the he's feeling something done to him as he's doing something to the Fade? I think that, and then getting a flashback moment of what's happening to him, and then having him do that. I think that could be really, again, I know some people don't want to see it, cool. But I think of some flashbacks of Padan Fane in his mind as he's pinning the Fade could be really, really impactful. Okay, I like that idea. That's my new headcanon.
They could have.
Let's see how horrifying we can make this.
They could first have those flashbacks during the interrogation by Moiraine, and then have them again as he's nailing up the Fade.
Yeah, I mean, because again, we are given this knowledge from Moiraine, right? Yeah. We don't see any of it. No. And she even says, like, I'm not going to tell you. Basically, she says, I'm not going to tell you everything. It's too horrifying. But let me tell you a little bit. Made into the Hound, basically, so I could see them mixing those two things. What else when it comes to Padan Fane here early on? Is there anything that we don't see that you'd like to see? Or you think it would be impactful that's an off-screen Padan Fane scene from the first 2 or 3 books? And chat, feel free to throw something out. I think I saw something about the Black Wind, getting Fane, obviously, seeing him in the ways. Would you, seeing some of that early on? I don't know. That's potential as as something that could be impactful. I kind of like leaving that one as a surprise, that we don't know that that's happening. So that's why I'm not leaning that way. Can you both think of something before we jump on to the next topic?
The only thing, but I don't think they'll do this. It's the village council questioning him in the beginning, perhaps, just to establish the village council.
Yeah, something early on. I wonder if they will, again, kind of it depends on how much they give us, right? We're told that we're at least getting the actor for one. I think they said he was like in one episode. So who knows, like, what they're doing Padan Fane. I'm hoping that's not indicative of what we're going to get the second season, if you will. So, okay, I think we're going to jump on from here. I'm going to open the call lines. We're going to weave you into the call. If you want to give us a call, you can here. Like I said, we're not going to get to all the calls likely, but let me throw the phone number up for those that are kind of curious. But I just want to warn you, we're not going to get to them all. We want to get through a lot of these topics, but the number is 1-313-825-5968. So go ahead and again start calling, and if we'll get to as many of you as we can. So, and that's a good question. Maybe right before I show this next one, Jeffrey Gerard said, "Should there be some foreshadowing of Fane's darkness when he is first shown?" Stubble, do you like the idea of foreshadowing his darkness, or do you just like finding it out later?
I think finding it out as we go along. Maybe towards the end of season 1, we start to notice some things.
Yeah. Marin, I'm going to ask you a different question. His experience in Shedar Logoth, is it something? Do we need to see that, or just be aware that it happened?
Ooh, that's a good one. Honestly, I think just being aware that it happened, mostly because although I think Padden Fane is really a fascinating character, there's so many other things to see that I'm okay if he gets a little less screen time than some of the other things that we've been talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to choose. I mean, Padden Fane's one of those characters that has so many off-screen scenes, right? Like, we're like, right. Wait, what happened? I mean, like even Nynaeve catching up with the group, there's off-screen things that are happening there. I think we can go too far on the Padden Fane route, so I'm agreed that we don't have to see everything. I think we've talked about some of the key things that would be really good. Well, let's jump to the next topic here. One of a favorite topic of fandom, and a lot of off-screen stuff going on here. Let's talk about Lan and Nynaeve.
Let's do,
right, Maren? I think I'll go to you on this one. Lan and Nynaeve. Honestly, to me, this is a huge target in the TV show, and one thing that fandom often complains about is maybe how much time Robert Jordan gives on screen to relationship building, and this seems like an obvious target. I can't imagine them taking this out of the show. So when it comes to
how to upset the entire fandom.
Yeah. There'd be some upset fans. When it comes to off-screen scenes with Lan and Nynaeve, are there any where you're like, oh, there's an obvious target for this off-screen scene, where they allude to something that was set off-screen, or just more scenes where we come to believe them as a relationship?
So in the first couple books, I would definitely like to just see them spending more time together, as they're riding along, doing their different things or they're going and foraging for food, because it's obvious from the get-go, Lan thinks Nynaeve is all that in a bag of chips, right? And he very much respects her abilities, respects that she's a strong, fierce woman. And it's very obvious that, she returns those feelings pretty strongly. But it doesn't, like with other relationships in the book series, they don't seem to have a lot of time to mature. I mean, we're not seeing those little hints and bits and pieces, and that's what I would love to see. And of course, the wedding, which we might talk about later. Are we talking about that one later, or is this fit in right here? Because
and that's a good thing to bring up. Again, I warned everybody, spoilers all the way through the books, so don't get mad at me in the comments. Put the thing up if you didn't listen to the beginning and missed the spoiler warning. But yes, the wedding is one that fandom. But go ahead and speak about that.
Well, okay, so I feel, and I don't know if anybody's ever spoken of this before, but did Robert Jordan just really hate weddings? Because so many people get married, and we really don't see much of it. We see a couple of the even fielders, in a very sad wedding ceremony, because everybody's about to die the next day, and then we have Lan and Nynaeve, and that's got to be really intriguing. And I have to tell you, as a huge fan of Bridgerton, I love to see the fancy costumes and the way different cultures approach weddings, and the way, like the Even Fielders are going to do it differently than the Sea Folk, who are going to do it differently than they do in Abu Dar. And I am here for all of it. So I want every wedding to appear on this show, even if it's not a big scene. But I just think that, there are so few moments of pure joy in the books, in all honesty, because it seems like joy must be tinged with some sort of regret or pain or something like that. Because right. Are we full humans? But to have some of those bits of joy, to remind people why we care about all of these people. So thank you for letting me be on a soapbox. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you brought up a couple things, and chat's been agreeing with this, which is we need more than like, hey, you're good at tracking, I'm in love. You know what I mean? And I think that was one of the comments that was made by Jeffrey Gerard. That's a great.
You could swing a hatchet at a Trolloc. I think we should get married.
yeah. I think they can include those, and you brought this up. It doesn't need to be much, but we can see it. We can see these things happening, which in the book, it's just harder. It's just harder to see happening, other than actually getting like a scene like you get in Faldara, really dramatic scene moment between them, and always reminded that she's wearing his ring. I have his ring. And you're like, okay, then you must be in love, of course. Yeah.
And that kind of strikes me even as a little bit like high school cheerleader wearing the football captain's ring.
It is.
Find some string around it so it fit. I mean, it's just kind of like, come on, but they're lovely together, and it would be nice to see that happening and growing.
Okay, Stubble, I want to get your thoughts on Lan and Nynaeve, and then we're going to bring our first caller, Oscar from Sweden. I know he's waiting on internationally for us. So, Stubble, give me your thoughts on Lan and Nynaeve, and if you feel like those are some of the most important off-screen scenes, and whether or not we should get them in the TV show.
They are important off-screen scenes, and I can't define what they are, but we need more of them. So maybe at moments when Lan and Nynaeve are off doing their thing in the wilderness, they can have a scene where they have some form of interaction that's hints at what's to come. But I can't define it more than that.
Yeah, I want to bring up along those lines. Ro the Hated said a lot of off-screen scenes could be in mini episodes between full ones, maybe even released at the end of the after shows. And Mike added webisodes would be awesome. Yeah, we don't know. Amazon could be planning some of the stuff, right? They could be giving us. We always think of episodes, and that's it, right? So great that you guys brought that up. I hadn't gone down that road. Like, what else? I mean, could they be planning anything on top of the full episodes? That's a very cool thought that I don't think has really entered main kind of fandom conversation. So that is a show in and of itself. Let me bring our first caller into the Dusty Wheel here. Welcome to the Dusty Wheel, Oscar. How you doing today?
Hello, everyone. Nice to hear of you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, exactly. It's good to hear your voice again. So what are your thoughts about what we've said so far?
Well, most of it I absolutely agree on. And I want to give a few more reasons about why I think this scene with Tam and Apple visiting Tarvalon should be in the show.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
But for one, it is Michael McElhatton. This is not just one actor that is going to be placed as an extra in a scene or something. It is a big name, and therefore he needs a bit more screen time. And we can't just have him being just episode 1 of the show and then being forgotten until a few seasons later. For the second reason, I think it is a good idea to have a scene in Tarvalon. And while Weapon Prime haven't given a full confirmation we will visit there, we have seen some leaked pictures of what seems to be some set pictures of it. And also, it is a good idea to introduce two different kinds of Aes Sedai, because most of Aes Sedai, they usually have the goal of the end justifies all the means. Therefore, they can be a bit callous when it comes to the feelings between a father and their child. And it can be a good way to also show that not all our Aes Sedai is to be trusted.
Yeah, I love those. I love all those suggestions. Michael McElhatton being in the show, like you said, I hope they're not just planning on giving us season 1, episode 1, and then he's gone. So potentially going back to the village a bit, showing even him leaving to go find them would be great. And like you said, giving us a scene in the White Tower, showing some of the politics there potentially, how they treat non-channelers. Like what is the treatment to someone that can't channel?
Exactly.
So I think those are fantastic point. I know I saw a lot of comments in chat. This is kind of like, well, this is a small thing. I agree it's a small thing, but I think it would be really impactful for the show for them to pull it in. Yeah, great thoughts there.
It is a small scene, but at the same time, I feel like this is something that really needs to be in the show.
Yeah. I actually, if I could choose that scene, I would absolutely include it. I hope that Rafe and his team believe the same, that they try and want to keep that connection to the village. and to Tam. And I hope that them picking Michael McElhatton suggests they have bigger plans than just a one and done here. So yeah, great thoughts, Oscar. Really appreciate that. If you could pick, before I let you go, I want to know if you had to come down to just one extra off-scene screen from the first 2 books, and that's all you could pick, just one thing to add to the TV show, which off-screen scene would it be?
That is a good question. And this comes down to the scene I just said that, and to the scene that we see sort of a prologue of Tam Finding Rand, because that scene would be quite iconic and remembered. So it is a difficult question. But for the whole lore building, I would probably have to go with Tam Finding Rand.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a fantastic one. That's one we started off with. Hey, Oscar, great to hear your voice, man. And hopefully we'll talk to you soon. I'm glad we were able to have an episode for you that is not in the middle of the night. So have a good one, okay? We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Have a good, have a good.
Yep. So we have 3 more callers. Like I said, we're trying to weave you into our conversations. You might be waiting a bit here. I turned off the call because I think the likelihood is we'll only be able to take these 3 callers here. I do want us to jump on to the next topic. I know Land of Nynaeve is a big topic, but this one is actually one that we have reason to believe we are going to get, that it is one of the most iconic off-screen scenes from the Eye of the World. Tarwin's Gap. Like, it's so strange, right? It's like we're going to the Eye of the, like the book's called The Eye of the World, not Tarwin's Gap, of course. And yes, we get a little bit of this from kind of Rand's point of view for a moment, and then he's gone, and it's gone. Do you believe that Tarwin's Gap is one of the best off-screen scenes, and we should get more of it, basically, for the TV show?
I want to see it. I don't know how crucial it is for the series, but I want to see it.
You're like it's for me.
Yeah, it's not necessary, but I want to see it.
See, I think there are reasons why it could be necessary. Marin, do you feel like it's necessary and it's one of the best ones that we miss out on as readers?
That's just so hard to say, because we have on-screen Dumais Wells, and that is just spectacular, right? So I am torn. I don't have an answer for that. I'm so sorry. I would go with whatever they do.
I see. Okay, so I'm going to try to make a small case for this one, and then we'll bring our next caller in. Again, this is one of the first moments where we really get a battle that's kind of kicking off the fact that the Dark One's minions are in mass attacking. Not just we got some Forsakens, we got some Dark Friends, and we actually see like there is a significant large danger to civilization, and here is its first significant war in a while. And Tarwin's Gap, I mean, they talk about how many are there, and yes, we get a little bit of Rand from Rand's point of view. He comes in and kind of saves the day a bit, but it is this mass of humanity meeting this mass of shadow spawn, and it does suggest of many battles to come. So, and I will say this. Yeah. I think Rafe said it's one of his, I think he pointed out Tarwin's Gap as like something he wanted to make sure got in there. So I think I'd be surprised if we don't get Tarwin's Gap in. That being said, I'm not seeing a ton of like love or hate for this. Let me throw this out to chat. If you're here with us, thumbs up if Tarwin's Gap to you is both one of kind of an iconic, one of the best off-screen scenes we just don't really get, and 2, if it should show up in the TV show. I'm kind of curious because I'm not hearing there's not a lot of activity back and forth there. And while chat answers, let's bring in Samantha to the show. Welcome, Samantha, to the Dusty Wheel. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic.
Happy 4th.
Happy 4th. Happy 4th. So, Now I know you probably called in with an idea here, so you can jump to what you were reacting to first, and then I'll probably ask you this question about Tarwin's Gap afterwards. So go ahead and what kind of interested you as part of our conversation so far tonight?
I just want to go back to the idea of the prologue again. I don't think this was really brought up, but I think it's so important to show that this is our first glimpse into the Age of Legends. And I think it's just so important to show the world before the breaking. And I'm talking about, the technology that existed. So maybe I'm thinking like showing all of the advanced farm equipment outside of Loose Baron's manor. And that could sort of juxtapose with, Tam and Rand on this dinky little farm, in this tiny little town. Just showing a world really saturated with magic and then rooting us into this sort of primitive world that's almost completely devoid of magic. We hear the Aes Sedai talk about it over and over again, in the Age of Legends this, and they did this with the one power and that, but to actually see it, I think is really, really important. And especially since, even in the prologue, you get a sense for, really seismic things happening with, sort of the formation of Dragon Mountain, Loose Baron creating a mountain, but that doesn't really tell you that the world has really been destroyed unless you're a geologist and you understand the implications of something like that. But really showing the magic before and after, I think, would really be important.
Yeah, that's one of the topics we have coming up here, and we were going to bring this one up later, but it was after the breaking. So I want to ask you both, and I'll start with you, Samantha. You've talked about the breaking itself, right? And I think that's an important one, that whatever season it shows up in, we have to see some of this stuff beyond what we see with the Aiel. We need to get a bit more into the wars. And then I love what somebody brought up was after the breaking. We see some stuff with the Aiel, but we don't really see much more than that. So Samantha, would you say after the breaking is more important or less important? In other words, if you had to pick showing the breaking,
really
if you will.
interesting.
Yeah.
So I remember being really disappointed that wasn't more important in the books. I kept feeling like that was a promise that was going to bear fruit that really didn't. We kept like the Trolloc Wars and the things that happened, after the breaking before, this current age that Rand's in. But it just didn't seem important in the end. So I don't think it's, important to show it.
Yeah, it did not. You're right. From the show standpoint, it was like, the world was broken. It eventually got back together. It's like, and things moved on, and this is where we're at today. But I thought it was a really interesting idea, of showing the disruption to the world afterwards. So
maybe in the realm of the channelers, the male channelers, it's a bit important. Maybe they can do that. It goes back to the idea of Logain and why people really followed Logain, and also why people are afraid of male channelers. Maybe showing something crazy destructive that he can do. Something like that. And maybe like, this is why we do what we do. This is why he has to be gentle. This is why all male channelers must be dealt with.
Oh, that's really fascinating. I never thought about that. When you think about the breaking, and it was like all the male channelers, so they broke the world, but you don't think, wait, no, that power to break the world if some channeler goes insane exists today, and so actually showing something very monumental that he does. What a fascinating, I hadn't thought about that. Great idea. Well, Samantha, before I let you go, I'm going to ask my cohorts here after you're off just what their thoughts are about the breaking. We'll keep this conversation going about the breaking. But before I let you go, either question tackle. One, you can either pick, want to give me your thoughts on Tarwin's Gap, or if you could pick only one off-screen scene from the first two books, which one would it be? You can choose between those two topics, but give me your thoughts either way.
That is so hard. I don't like this question. I think Tarwin's Gap is really interesting just because it's our first really large-scale Trolloc confrontation and sort of foreshadowing for things to come. But I really want to see Rand light some fire, Matt light some fireworks, or let free a badger.
That would be the one. I like that. I like that you went to the prank. That shows devotion to the characters themselves. You didn't pick the big stuff. You picked something on the regards of really setting up Matt. So I love that. Hey, Samantha, thank you so much. Really appreciate the call, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Okay. Take care.
Yep. You too. Bye bye. Okay. To Samantha's idea here about bringing up the breaking Age of Legends, and not just the breaking, but the Age of Legends itself. To you first, Marin, and then I'll go to you, Stubble. Are those off-screen scenes, some of the most iconic and some of the most important for the TV show? Do you want to see the sci-fi, basically, past of this world show up in the TV show?
I think it kind of has to, in order to understand that the wheel of time does turn, and also the great loss that we lost in technology and in human and animal life, and the world was reshaped. This is, I want to really know what's happening on the island of the madmen, but I'm not going to get that. And I cope, but it's one of those things. I think you have to, but I think how they handle it can be done in so many different ways. I don't know that we need full scenes. I don't know. It could even be, one of these in a galaxy far, far away type thing where they just do it snippets to just, to show, or, when they're talking about the Forsaken, that seems to me like the best time to start introducing, this is this amazing world we came from, and we're stuck with this place, when, I think about that if I have to go without air conditioning during a Midwest summer, it's like, where I came from had air conditioning, I can't even imagine what not that I feel sympathy for Forsaken, but, come on. This is a whole new world that they have to adapt to that, to me, that would be able to show the juxtaposition of all of that really nicely.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love the idea of waiting for the Forsaken for that, giving us some flashbacks, and I agree with Iris Bear's comment in chat. I want to see all of the Age of Legends scenes. Honestly, I just want a separate Age of Legends spinoff. That's what I want. In the end of the day, it is so iconic. I can
support that.
I need that. So, Stubble, do you think that the Age of Legends are some of the most important off-screen scenes of the Wheel of Time, and that they do belong in the TV show?
Yeah, I think if they have the prologue as the prologue, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If they do that, then they could have the title sequence that's 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes long, where the credits are for different people. They could show the breaking in a more maybe not in a direct way, but more in a stylized way, perhaps, and then come back to it later on.
Yeah, great point. Which is Forsaken, Ishamael, Prologue, breaking. I absolutely believe they could give us some off-screen scenes there. Not just the moment where he sees Lews Therin, but him almost glorifying his destruction that he's brought on behalf of the Dark One to the world. And Lews Therin's kind of like this other thing that he has to take care of, but showing him even just going to Lews Therin from the city center or something like that. You know what I mean? I think that there could be really, really interesting stuff there. So, what a great topic. Yeah, Marin, go ahead.
Sarah James wrote, Moradin glaring at a privy. That's awesome. Yeah. This live chat, man. There's some funny stuff here.
They're a blast. You guys are, if you've never been to the show before the first time, live chat is its own experience. And watching the show, sometimes I have fans say they go back and watch the show afterwards because they couldn't pay attention because they were watching chat, or vice versa. So yes, they're a blast. Okay, our next topic here is to jump to the Seanchan. But before we do that, let me bring in our second to last caller to the show. Let me welcome Mike to the Dusty Wheel. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Hi, good.
Fantastic. So, what have we said? What have you said? What have you said today, or what did you call? What kind of kicked off you wanting to call in?
Well, I'm wondering. My number one off-screen scene is actually from much later in the books. I want to see a brief little bit where Matt gets to tell Lynn or some other Melkiri that Jane Farstrider died clean.
Oh, that is a good one. Oh man, yeah. So
I should note that Brandon I have it straight from Brandon that this actually did happen off screen. We don't even see it referred to in the books, but it was a question that I got to ask him at a book signing.
Awesome. Yeah, so I love
also,
that, yeah.
If you're talking
That's
about
cool.
the first two books, I'd like to see the Fall of Manatharin.
Oh, shoot. We didn't even. How did we not bring up the Fall of Manatharin already? There's so
We
many.
are but mortal.
Oh, man. Okay, yeah, so
Yeah.
yes, exactly. So Fall of Manatharin. I mean, there's so many to target there, right? Fall of Manatharin, you could target the Aiel coming over the dragon. There's so many events like this. I mean, Arthur Hawkwing, anything having to do with Arthur Hawkwing, basically becoming the Shan-Chan Empire. But I love Fall of Manatharin. You just got, to everyone in chat, Fall of Manatharin, does that have to be in the TV show? Do we have to see that visually? Give me some thumbs up. I mean, obviously it's described, right? But yeah, what a great one, Mike, to bring up from the first two books. I have a hard time not choosing that one over everything we've already discussed.
Oh my gosh!
So good,
and think of it like the scenes when Moraine is giving the pep talk, and then you're cutting to scenes, and I'm so glad you called in. That's such a great scene.
Oh yes, that is so good.
Somebody
Okay.
just mentioned in the chat that they would like to see that while Moraine is telling the story with her doing voiceover, and that would be a really good way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Man. Interesting. I see a thumbs down from Dana in chat. I gotta ask Dana about that later. If you don't know, we do an after show on Discord. Yeah, we jump into Discord after the show. You can find the link in the description, and we kind of keep all these conversations going, sometimes for hours. So yeah, if you are new here and don't know that, I'm sure Dana will throw the link in the chat here for you. But yeah, after the show's over, if you want to keep talking about these topics, you can catch us on Discord. We'd love to have you there. Hey, Mike, thank you so much for calling in. You brought up some really awesome topics. Any final thoughts before you go?
No, I love what you've been talking about so far. And you've already mentioned a few that I haven't thought of. Like I never thought of Tarwin's Gap until you brought it up.
Yeah, there's so many, right? I know we said the best off-screen scenes. This is a series of shows we'll have to do. there's no way we can capture all of them in the Wheel of Time, but I love just bringing this topic up. I'm glad Stubble made it happen. So, hey, Mike, have a good one, and hopefully we'll see you back here at the Dusty Wheel.
Oh, thank you. Have a great one.
You too. Bye-bye. Yeah, Fall of Manatharin. I don't have a cool graphic for that one, but yeah, great. Great points. Let me jump to this next topic, and we'll bring our last caller in here in just a few minutes. The Shan-Chan invasion. This is something, again, and I don't know. Rajesh just said, "Can we do off-screen show for each book?" Yeah, that might be a way to do this. How do you not show the Shan-Chan and the threat they are? It's interesting when you just run into them. I like the way that Jordan's written this, right? We just come upon them and you hear about them, right? And then they're here already. They're like, oh, okay. And now you learn about them. Stubble, do you like this idea? The Shan-Chan invasion, is it one of the best off-screen scenes? And does it belong in the TV show?
I think it's either a good season ender or a good season starter. And I think it's a good thing that we see them invade, because otherwise you have to explain who these people are. You have to explain it anyway, but you have to explain that there's been an invasion. And it's a great way to start off a season.
Yeah, exactly. A new threat. I like the idea of it making, David Jackson pointed this out in chat, let the Shan-Chan invasion be a book 2 threat, very little shown in book 1, if anything. I agree. Season 1, I still think season 1 makes, Rafe talks about this being like, this is the Wheel of Time. It's not just a book by season, right? So whether or not how many books, things from other books showing up in season 1 are possible, I think this one is a great series ender. And seeing how many ships, they talk about when the heroes fight them, how many ships they see in the harbor, seeing that come in is just, I think it's monumental. Like, what a perfect way to kind of like make everyone that's never read the Wheel of Time books be like, what's that? And who are they? Marin, do you like this idea? Is this to you one of those iconic best off-screen scenes, the actual, you know, the Corrine, right? Like, and not seeing it, and is it something the TV show needs?
Yes.
You're like, yes, correct.
Yeah.
Right?
I think how they're introduced, because one of the things that's brilliant in Robert Jordan's writing is having, you know, these little whispers of something strange is afoot, and then all of a sudden these really nasty invaders are there, and everyone's, you know, caught on the wrong foot, you know, and nobody's really sure what to do or what any of it means, and the culture itself is so easy, animals and like all of that.
Yeah.
But it could be something like where the sea folk are running into them and coming back and letting people know in the different harbors that they're in, and then seeing it build up and then finally invade. Because I think one of the things that's going to be a little challenging with a series that's this massive and in a world that's so complex is making sure everything has context. You know, that, okay, we kind of, you know where to put this thing, that so it's not like a whole bunch of random things all sewn together.
Yep. Well, what I wanted to add to that was the bringing up something new, and not only, I think you just brought this up, the idea of going to the ships and showing like what this thing, who these people are, the toe rockin', right? I mean, how do we not see the toe rockin'? Mm-hmm. And I love, by the way, I love when people go to Robert Jordan and they're like, so the toe rocking like dragons? He's like, they're not dragons. And they're like, but they're kind of flying dragon looking things. And he's like, they're not dragons. Okay, but are they kind of dragons? They're dragon-ish, right? He's like, they're not dragons. The Wheel of Time does not have dragons. Other than the Dragon Reborn, but it's not really referring to anything. There's no dragons. But the toe rocking, right? I think it would be really interesting to finish up the season 1 actually showing like this new threat of things that have not been seen the entire season. Like, what is this? And having people see them and be like, what is this? You know, watching the toe racking come in and do, you know, some destruction there would be pretty amazing. So, Stubble, are you,
yeah.
How do you feel about the Seanchan, or when it comes to the Seanchan invasion, if you had to include it, are you a firm season 1 or season 2 on this? Like, do you think it's too much for season 1?
I think it could be a good season opener for season 2 with maybe an point of view aboard the ship as they approach.
Yeah, I can go either way, whichever they choose. I think season 2 opener would be really, really impactful. Season 1 ender, I'm either way happy. Dehu in chat said, I hope they don't get cut due to budget. Good point. Hadn't even considered that some of these creatures could get cut. That'd be upsetting a little bit. As a fan, what I mean is I get that I have to cut some things. That just makes the Seanchan so interesting and different than just like an invading army. Well, let me bring our last caller into the show, and then I want to finish up on some of these topics. We'll probably go an extra 10 minutes later than normal. Hope everyone's okay with that. I love this topic and conversation. So let me welcome Noel to the Dusty Wheel. Noel, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Fantastic. So thank you very much for being our final caller today. And what kind of made you want to call in?
I mean, really quick, this whole Seanchan discussion, like seeing the Hylian, would love to see that at the end of season 1. Just like I can see it in my head, just like zooming out. You know, you might not even necessarily need to show everything, but like zooming out, see the ships, the rocket flying around, maybe something explodes and cut. But yeah, that's an amazing point. I actually I wanted to ask a question for the entire panel. This is more going back to like relationships. The discussion with Lan and Nynaeve, which I also thought was awesome, and I agree with all the points made me also think about Tom and Moiraine. Now, I know arguably we see them on screen together a couple times, but I was wondering if any of the panelists would think maybe some more, like, first of all, if it's implied there are off-screen interactions between Tom and Moiraine, and if that would be beneficial to kind of flesh out the relationship as the show goes forward.
Yeah, this is there's so much to unpack here. But like, let me go to you first, Stubble. Tom and Moiraine, as far as seeing that relationship develop, we've talked about the Lan and Nynaeve. What are your thoughts about what Noel had to ask here?
They spend very little time in the story. I suspect they have some sort of history before, because they just a little time together in the first book, and then a little time in Shadow Rising. And then they don't see each other until much later. And So they have to show something more than what's in the books, I think, but I don't know what.
Yeah, Maren, any thoughts on what they could do here? Assuming they're not going to change this relationship, assuming we're going to have this relationship in the TV series, is there something you would do specifically, an off-screen scene that you would bring in?
In my headcanon, they kind of, they met when Moiraine was still in court.
Gotcha.
And and so they have like this little bit of history, kind of like high school sweethearts, that they go off to different colleges, they're off doing their own thing, they meet again later in life, they fall in love, so I kind of like the idea of building up a bigger backstory for them so that it makes more sense. Because if you're looking at like their life after the Emond's, the point where they meet again in Emond's Field, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, you can see drips of it if you're looking for it through the books, on a reread, like maybe your third reread, you can see drips of it, but it doesn't make a ton of sense without them having a backstory. So in my head, they were like childhood sweethearts.
I like that.
Sort of.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Just in the show, spoiler for the show, but apparently they won't even meet in the first season.
Oh, yeah, good point that we don't, as far as we know, that Tom won't be in episode 1 at least. I think that's what we believe we know. So not being in Emond's Field does, preclude at least that moment happening. I mean, Noel, what would you do here? Would you have, I like the idea. It never made sense to me they didn't know about each other. Like, I feel like these are two people that would have known about each other. But do you like the idea of adding that awareness that they are familiar with each other in some form or fashion, whether or not it's notoriety or it's, high school sweethearts, if you will. Not sweethearts, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
What would you do there?
Anyway, I think I do agree that if like that would be a really good method to add depth to their relationship, is to give them some sort of background. I don't know that what that would be, but I assume it would be something. The idea of them meeting when Moiraine is younger at court is actually really, really fascinating, and it would also, tie in some world building elements as well, even if it's not shown on screen. But either that or Samantha earlier brought something up too, like, maybe they might just cut this relationship entirely, and maybe they might change this dynamic a little bit. I don't think that'll happen, just because, as we know later in the books, there's a lot of significance behind this relationship and driving Tom to go to the Tower of Genji. But maybe they could do that too. I'm not really sure. Personally, I would love to see more of their relationship, because I think they're two, they're two like characters with similar interests and skills in certain areas. They're really politically savvy, and they're also very driven. Though Tom kind of loses this way, but we'll see, right? We'll see before the end of the year. So.
Yeah. Oh man, good point. We're going to know the answer somewhat to that question, at least where we think we know it's going before this year ends, which is still fascinating to me, having picked these books up in 1990 and then thought about a show that we finally, 30 some odd years later, many of us will be like, actually seeing it this year. This year won't end before we do. That's amazing. Hey, Noel,
we've lived long enough.
Yes, we've made it. We've made it. Hey, Noel, Noel, I had a question for you before I let you go. If you had to pick only one off-screen scene from the first 2 books, that's all you could add to the TV show, which one would it be?
This is really hard, because I actually have 2 specific ones, so I'll just choose one of them.
Only one.
I think it would actually be it'd be Pat and Fane nailing the fade to the door in the Great Hunt, because I think if maybe it might be too much, but me personally, I would just love to see him clearly developing his powers as this, kind of rogue maverick villain, and putting the fear of the creator, I guess the fear of the Dark One, into a fade. That'd be a good way to show that he's not necessarily just who he might appear to be. But I think, like one of the panels said earlier, whatever the writers do will probably be awesome. So, if they don't show it on screen and we get it like the books, that might work too. But just for me personally, I think that's it would just be a really powerful, really creepy scene, kind of leading into some of the more horror elements. So.
Yeah, it's hard to not pick something with Fane. I love the character so much. I mean, the Fall of Manatharin was a great suggestion someone made earlier. But if I had to come down to
I know. That was amazing.
A Fane-related scene, honestly, I would pick a Fane-related scene, hoping that Rafe and his team are not going to cut that character. And, like, I want Fane's plotline even more so than we get in the books. Hey, Noel, thank you very much for calling in. Really appreciate you being on that final caller today. And we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Hey, thanks for having this first-time caller. Cheers.
Oh, man, thank you so much for being here. Please do call back, okay? We'll talk to you soon.
I will. Sounds good. Cheers.
Yep, bye-bye. Cheers.
I don't think they'll cut Tom and Moraine because Rafe mentioned the dynamic between them when Tom's guitar was introduced in one of his questions.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people, and I definitely think the dynamic between Moraine being pulled to her relationship with Swan and also pulled to this relationship with Tom could really be interesting for the show too. So I really like that, and I hope they actually dig into both of those, or that they could, in other words, and that could be really, really fascinating. Now, I know we're getting close to the normal kind of ending. We're right there, but I want to go a little bit longer here because I want to bring up a couple of topics. We'll try not to stay on them too long. I might just go back and forth between topics to either one of you. I mean, this one is one of my favorites. Matt fighting Coolidin. I mean, this is the classic one that in my head, I think this one we have to see. There's something fun about it where afterwards you're just like, people are just talking about it and in the books and you're like, Matt's just reveling basically from what happened. I mean, he's in a strange state of mind because he wasn't really looking for that, right? It just happened. Is that one, Maren, that you want to see, Matt versus Coolidin? Is that, to you, one of the great lost scenes, great off scenes? Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
I mean, give it to us,
for
right?
all the reasons you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just... I want that whole section. Matt just doesn't, he's like trying to get out of his responsibilities here and basically runs up against Coolidin and kills him. Like that's how I remember the scene at the very least. So yeah, I agree with to Damien saying anything with Matt. Yeah, any additional scene with Matt. I want to bring this one up to you, Stubble. The Forsaken, the Boar, them getting basically unsealed and their plans. What off-screen related Forsaken scenes are the most important to you? I know there's a billion, but which ones are the most important to you?
I think you need to establish them, maybe not as Forsaken, but as characters, as charismatic characters. Like Gabriel is a charismatic lord who more or less takes over the court, and so on. And you see him arriving and maybe his effects and so on. And you maybe don't have to say that he's a Forsaken. You can just show the character.
Yeah, more of their establishing themselves where they're going. I don't know. It's always a strange thing. Would you want to see, though, one of the Forsaken leaving the Boar? You know what I mean? Like, would you want to actually see that process?
I think it could be interesting to see one or two of them leave. Because as I remember it, Agenor and Bartholomew, they were too close to the surface, so they aged. But the others didn't age, I think.
Yeah, there was an age. I'm almost imagining like, I don't know, it's like a dropping, but that's probably not the right thing, but just kind of like almost crouched over and standing up. But maybe that's not I don't know what the imagery would be, but I want, at least seeing one of them, this notion of them escaping something that they've been, I don't know if it's too Superman-like, it's like, I'm trying to think of, it has some kind of feel to that, but.
Yeah. It could be interesting if they combine that with finding the broken seal in the end of book 1. Yeah,
that could be an interesting kind of connecting to the two events from happening. Like the seal was broken, and then it led to the escape is the wrong word, but the getting out of the Boar. I don't know what you call it. That one's a really interesting one. I think there's so much here for the Forsaken. We could probably come back and talk about the Forsaken and the TV show. And maybe we'll do that. I want to do that. So we'll definitely do an episode here at the Dusty Wheel talking about the Forsaken and the TV show and how to do it right. I know a lot of us as fans have had kind of like, do they all have to kind of seem like clowns, like be terrible at their jobs? Is that what we have to believe,
No promotions for them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how did they actually get here? They're supposed to be like ruthless and cutthroat. We need to see that, right? You didn't make it to the top chain by basically not being those things. Like, we have to see that kind of. Anything else? I mean, I know I feel weird not bringing this one up. More Varen. I don't even know. I don't even honestly know what we say that, and maybe I mean, every show should end with talking about Varen. So Maren, let me go to you here. Is Varen perfect in the books? Is that just leave that one alone? I'm trying to think of like all the characters.
I think she's great. And I mean, as far as the way she's presented, how often she's presented, she's kind of woven in here and there. And that's perfect because she's an international super spy. So let's just keep it that way, and not place because if you place too much emphasis on her, everyone's going to get what she's doing before everyone knows what she's doing. And I would hate to see us miss out on that.
Yeah, it's hard for me to think that I want more Varen. It's like, that is a sure
she's
knowledge.
A great character. Yeah.
I want more Varen, but at the same time, I think from the viewer's perspective, leaving it as it is does seem kind of the right choice. What do you think, Stubble? Final note on Varen, leave it as is in the books and just basically translate it into the show? Or is there some off-screen scene that you think would be actually really interesting and impactful for the TV show?
There's an off-screen scene I want to see, but that we won't see. and that is her flicker scene.
Oh, yes. Oh, man. Her flicker scene would be amazing, but you're right. We will not get that. Oh, no, that's not true. We might get something, but it could just be subtle enough that it won't tell us necessarily anything. But to keep the mystery, Varen probably is not a great target for these off-screen scenes, I don't think. So I'm not seeing a lot of people say.
I want to see a flicker scene with Perrin where he loses himself to the wolf.
Yeah, Perrin knowing the best.
That'd be cool.
I've always said about the flicker scenes that there was a lot of change that happened to everyone that went through that. And Jordan does a really good job of adding that to the books in ways that as readers are so subtle that we don't even necessarily notice it. But stuff happens to Rand. It almost fast forwards his just the taint and his being affected by the taint. It changes how Matt kind of perceives his role, a bit. He's always running from things. It almost amps that up. And Perrin being so afraid of that choice, it makes a lot of. I mean, there's so many things that come from it that. Anyways, so yeah, flicker. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a great way to end this. More off-scene. Actually, in the TV show, seeing some flicker scenes. Yes, and triple yes. So, okay. Look, we could keep going on. Let's be honest. We could take up the whole afternoon and talk about off-screen scenes. Thank you, both of you. Maren, awesome to have you with us today. Great opinions. I loved having you here. Stubble, thank you for the idea. You came with a lot of, you've done some studying for this. I really appreciate you kind of putting some stuff together for this. You both are wonderful. So this was a great afternoon here on July 4th. Hopefully everyone here loved this that has been in chat with us. Please do like the video on the way out. If you want to come back afterwards and leave a comment on the video, kind of what did we miss? Anyone that's watching this far, what are the scenes we missed? What would you like to cover next time? Would you like us to focus on a particular topic, group, etc.? I'd love to know. And again, what a blast. And we'll be back on Wednesday talking about Alvaro Morte. That's going to be a lot of fun. And please do, like I said, please do catch us over on Discord for the after show. Looks like we lost Maren right at the end here. I'm sure Maren will jump back in, but probably after the show is done here. So I think that's it. Thank you, Stubble, and thank all of you. And as we say around here, good afternoon from the Dusty Wheel, and smash to black.
Welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel.
You went right to kill it. Look at you. You're all ready. You're just done. I mean, this is like this is
really well. And now I'm like, great, my turn.
And if you don't like that, and you want to say, well, Robert Jordan could have made the two rivers all white. He could have, but he didn't. So,
Just complimented me on my dress, and as you can clearly see, I'm
sad.
not
I see Nakomi as something along the lines of a Shadar Haran analog.
It does make sense why it outlasted the breaking.
Yeah.
See, this is why I have Therese in the show, because she's going to correct everything that.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Dusty Wheel Show. What? Meme Off Challenge. Yay!
Pair of like baby face mounted on like a huge body. So like all of a sudden,
this is not just a traditional fantasy, right? There are sci-fi elements. And just a moment ago, Rafe tweeted something. So let me get my guest in here with me, and
probably I would say put in 70-80% of the work. I got to be over the shoulder and be like, no,